What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm excited to talk to you about the Canon F1. This absolutely gorgeous piece of equipment. Would it be equipment? Camera? Whatever, technology, whatever you want to call it. It is an extremely old camera and I've always wanted one, and I'm sure a lot of people have, or maybe not, but if you're watching this video then clearly you're interested in one of these as well. So let's dive right into it. One of the reasons I've always wanted the Canon F1, and it's gonna sound super cliche, is because it has that beautiful waist level finder like most older cameras have, like the older modular cameras, they all have waist level finders, and that's a super popular thing, especially now with social media. But I've always wanted one just because I always thought they were cool. I like waist level finders on medium format cameras like the Hassies, the Pentaxes, things like that, the Mamiyas. So I always thought the waist finders on the 35mm are just as cool, they're just not as popular. We'll jump right into it. That the Canon F1 is pretty interesting because most people either know about it or don't, but it's a super old camera. It was released in 1971, and shocker, but it was Canon's very first successful professional camera. So for any professional photographers, it was the very first camera that Canon released that was successful for professional photographers. How many times am I gonna say that? I don't know, but I just wanna make sure I get the point across. It's pretty cool. Now, in 1971, it did not come off as a cheap camera. This camera retailed for around $515, brand new, just for the body alone. In 1971, that's a pretty penny, obviously meant for professional photographers. Now the lens itself, this Canon 50mm 1.4, retailed for about $600. I want to say $639 exactly for the lens, and then $5 something for the body. So we're looking at together around $1,200 retail for this camera. I mean, in today's market, that's a steal. Back then, kind of expensive, but that's pretty cool. So around $1,200 would have got you this exact setup, 1971. Now, it is a chunky brass body, so it's heavy, it's clunky, it's pretty awesome. It feels really good in the hands. It is like a meaty camera, if that's what you want to call it. It is fully mechanical. One of the main reasons I really wanted this camera is I really like fully mechanical cameras. There's no electronics in here outside of the light meter prism that comes on here. Like I said, it is a modular design, so you can remove this prism anytime you want to and use a different prism or waist level finder, however you want to use for this camera. Now, they only made these cameras for about 10 years, from 1971 to 1981, and in that time frame, they released the Canon A1, the Canon A1 program, and a bunch of other cameras that moved into the electronics market as far as meters and automatic lenses and things like that. So they moved away from the fully mechanical cameras because they just had to get with the times in that time period. And that's a cool thing because innovation and everything else, but it's also a sad thing because what a gorgeous camera. I really miss mechanical cameras because you don't have faulty electronics or needing to replace batteries to use the camera and things like that. So I think it makes a shooting experience much easier when you don't have to worry about those things. Canon made this camera specifically to compete with the Nikon F and the Nikon F2 because those were extremely popular cameras of that time frame. So Canon specifically made this camera as its direct competitor. Now, I'm not gonna say which camera did better, but obviously you know which camera you can find on the market more, and I'll let you come to that conclusion. But I'm gonna cheat and say the Nikon F was a much more popular camera. Now, one of the coolest things about this camera when they released it, it was one of, if not Canon's, even to this day, Canon's most, how do you say this, most accessorized camera. Like, it had a ton of accessories, and for the time period, that was cool, but Canon slowly phased that out and stopped doing that with its other Canon bodies. With this camera, it came this modular prism, like I've said a million times. There's two buttons on the back right here, and you press those buttons, and then you just slide this prism off, right? So this prism slides right off of the camera, and now you have a gorgeous waist level finder. You can probably see my table, but now you have a waist level finder on your camera. So you can just look right into it and focus it. That is super cool. Like I said, you don't see that on a lot of newer 1985 and above 35mm cameras, but on this style it was super popular. Now, it did come with 4 of these different prisms, when they released it. It didn't come with it, it came with just this one, but if you wanted to buy extra modular accessories, you could buy waist level finders, prisms, all kind of viewfinders for the camera, which is awesome. It also came with grips, power drives, and motor drives. I want to say it was like 4 to 5 different of those for the grip, because it doesn't have a grip on it. It's very, very shallow. So it came, you can get a motor grip. I actually have one, but I despise it because it makes it a very big camera, and I hate very big cameras. It also came with focusing screens. I want to say you can get 9 different types of focusing screens inside there that you could change, which is like a lot of different focusing screens. This one specifically is really bright. I don't know if you can tell, but it's like super bright. So you can see it relatively easy considering this thing came out 60 something years, 70 years ago. Even, don't judge my math. It came with a data back for this camera. Well, excuse me, when I say came with, it didn't come with, you could buy it for an extra cost, but you could get a data back for this camera, which is pretty sweet. Then it just came with a bunch of other accessories. Like I said, to this day, Canon has not made a camera that was meant to have that many accessories right out the gate. Then you just slap your viewfinder back on and you're good to go. Another thing that was super popular about this camera that a lot of you guys don't know, all your Canon AE1s and Canon A1s and all the cameras that you have these cool little FD lenses on there, right? The FD lens was actually made to go with this camera. So the FD line of lenses was announced when they announced the Canon F1. FD, they all came out at the same time. So Canon made FD lenses to go with this series of cameras, and they lasted a lifetime. So if you know about anything about FD lenses, you know there are a ton of them. Now the cool thing about Canon and all these FD lenses is they made about 68 different iterations of an FD lens, anywhere from 7mm to 800mm. They had a ton of FD lenses. They actually had, side note, cool little, history fact is they actually had the fastest lens at that time, which is a 300mm 2.8, and you can still find them today for around 400 to 600 bucks. I mean, I don't know why you would need one, but that's a really cool lens to have for that cost, in case you want to shoot some birds or something like that. I'll go into one more thing about that I think is really cool. The battery. It does have a battery door on here, and that battery is specifically for the light meter. Now, cool thing is, I guess it's not a cool thing, but they used mercury infused batteries back in the day. They don't make batteries anymore. So if you want to use this light meter, you have to find a workaround. Now, it is a 1.5 volt battery. Well, it's actually 1.3 volts, which you need to power this light meter. And they do still make them, but you have to get them from B&H. I want to say it's a Ween. They still make a battery. It's around $13. I'll tag it right here. But what I did was I found a 1.5 volt 357 Energizer battery. It's a silver oxide battery. It's not a zinc air. And I used one of those. Now, it is a little bit stronger of a battery. It's 1.5 volts, not 1.3. It may not seem like a lot, but the electronics and the viewfinder need a certain voltage. So you do have to adjust your exposure properly when shooting, so you're not overexposing the image just due to the viewfinder having more voltage. Hopefully that makes sense. I just had to note that there just so you don't say, hey, Gio said I could put this battery in here. You can, just note for that. Now they do make hearing aid batteries that you can get for this camera that are like 1.3, 1.4 volts, and you can find them at any like CVS or Walgreens, and it'll work just as well. Now, the thing being with that is, most of the time when you put the battery in here, it's not, wrong side. Most of the time when you put the battery in here, it's gonna go right here. These 357 or hearing aid batteries are so small that it's gonna rattle around on the inside. To avoid that, a cool little trick is you can go to Home Depot and you can pick up one of these. You see this right here? This is a Donco number 7 O-ring. Is it Donco? Danco, whatever you want to call it. It's a number 7 O-ring. You can get one of these bad guys, slide it around your battery, and then throw it in your housing. I'll attach a photo here of what it looks like, and it will keep your battery from rattling. If you see I hold my Peak Design anchors because they actually rattle. No noise at all, because that O-ring holds it in place and it keeps it from shaking around, and I can still use my light meter whenever I want to, and it turns out works pretty good for me. I like it. Like I said, just make sure I normally stop down one stop when I'm actually shooting versus what my light meter says, just so I can get a properly exposed image. With all that being said, I've always loved this camera. I've always wanted one of these cameras. I ended up actually trading my AE1 to a nice guy named Ryan, and he hooked me up with this F1, and I traded him my AE1 with a 50mm, and I got this F1 with a 50mm 1.4, and I love the characteristics of this lens. I love the feel of the mechanical body. As you know, I had the Canon P. I had a couple, I actually had 2 of them because I love that camera so much. But I've always wanted one of these, and when I saw it, I had to just get one because it is a fantastic camera. To me, everything is subjective, but I think it is a great camera to have. The waist level finder just makes shooting a little bit more fun when you're out, makes it a little bit more enjoyable, and then you can just have fun. I'm going to show you some images that I've made with the Canon F1, and I hope you guys enjoy. Until next time, thank you guys. Do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment. Do you like this camera? Have you ever shot an F1? Do you have any other Canon 35mm cameras? I'm sure you do. But until next time, I appreciate you guys. As always, be easy.